My mom hid my real father for 17 years. I just met him for the first time. I never thought my life was anything but normal. At least, as normal as it could be when you grow up in a small town where everyone knows everyone's business. My mom raised me on her own, and although she sometimes seemed overly protective, I never questioned it. She told me my father had died before I was born. It was tragic, she'd say, and she didn't like to talk about it. Out of respect, I stopped asking questions by the time I was 10. But recently, I turned 17. And 17 feels like an age when you start noticing cracks in the stories you grew up believing. The first crack appeared at my birthday dinner. My grandma had too much wine and started crying. She told me I had my father's eyes. But then she said, "He'd be so proud if he knew you." The phrasing didn't sit right with me. If he knew me, didn't he die before I was born? I brushed it off at the moment, but her words stuck in my head like a thorn. That night, when I helped Mom clean up, I casually asked her to tell me more about Dad, what he was like, what their relationship was. She froze. For a long moment, she just stared at me with this look I'd never seen before, like she was terrified. Then she gave me a weak smile and changed the subject. That was the second crack. The third came a week later when I was hanging out at a local coffee shop. A man walked in, maybe in his late 30s or early 40s, and the barista who I vaguely knew from school looked at me, then at him, then back at me again with her eyebrows raised like she'd just seen a ghost. When I asked her what that was about, she shook her head and said, "Nothing, sorry." But the man, he stared at me for a long time, almost in shock, before quickly leaving without ordering anything. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. So I did what any teenager with too much curiosity and an internet connection would do. I started digging. I searched for old photos of my parents, but there were barely any of them together. I asked my grandma subtle questions when Mom wasn't around, but she always got flustered. And then I went through an old box in the attic that had some of Mom's high school yearbooks and letters. That's when I found it, a folded photo tucked inside a book. It was my mom, younger, standing next to a man I didn't recognize. He had the same eyes as me, the same hair, the same awkward half smile. On the back, written in Mom's handwriting, were the words, "Me and Daniel, summer before everything changed." Daniel. The name meant nothing to me at first, but the face was too familiar. I kept the photo hidden, but that night I couldn't sleep. My heart was racing, my thoughts spinning. I started to wonder if everything I believed about my father's death was a lie. And if it was, then who the hell was Daniel? I didn't know it yet, but this was the beginning of the unraveling. My life, the story I thought I was living, was about to collapse around me, and the truth waiting underneath would change everything. After finding that photo, I couldn't concentrate on anything else. I carried it around like a secret talisman, hidden deep in my backpack, pulling it out at night when Mom was asleep just to stare at it again. Every time I looked into that man's eyes, it felt like staring into a distorted mirror. I knew I couldn't keep living in uncertainty. The only way to get answers was to confront Mom. So the next evening, when she came home from work, I sat at the kitchen table with the photo in front of me. She noticed it immediately, and her entire face went pale. For a moment, she just stood there frozen, clutching her bag like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "Where did you get that?" she whispered. "In the attic," I said. My voice was steadier than I expected. "Who is he? Who's Daniel?" Her lips trembled, and she sank into the chair opposite me. For a long time, she didn't speak. I thought she might try to lie again, but then tears welled up in her eyes, and she covered her face with her hands. "I wanted to tell you when you were older," she finally said, but then older never felt like the right time. I leaned forward, my chest tight. "So he's my father?" She nodded slowly, unable to look at me. The room spun around me. I had suspected it, but hearing it out loud was like a bomb going off. "You told me my father died," I said, my voice shaking. I didn't know what else to do. She said through tears, "Daniel, he wasn't ready to be a father. He left before I even knew I was pregnant. He never came back. I thought I was protecting you from disappointment, from rejection. I thought it would be easier if you believed he was gone." Her words didn't comfort me. They stabbed deeper. "You lied to me for 17 years. I lied because I loved you," she said desperately, reaching across the table. "I didn't want you to grow up feeling abandoned." I pulled back. My hands were shaking so badly I had to clench them into fist. "And what about him? Does he even know I exist?" Her silence was my answer. The betrayal was overwhelming. It wasn't just about Daniel. It was about every memory I had of asking about my dad and being brushed off. It was about every time I'd felt different from the other kids but couldn't explain why. I stormed upstairs, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. Lying on my bed, I felt like my whole identity had been ripped away. The man I thought was dead was alive, out there, somewhere, and Mom had kept him from me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, the photo burning a hole in my thoughts. By morning, my anger had hardened into determination. If Daniel was my real father, I had to find him. Not because I wanted to forgive him. Not because I needed him, but because I needed answers. So I started digging again, but this time with a name. I searched online for Daniel plus our town's name. I went through old social media accounts, alumni groups, even local news articles. Hours of scrolling blurred together until finally, I found a match, Daniel Carter. He lived only 2 towns over. He ran some kind of auto repair shop. When I clicked on his profile picture, my heart nearly stopped. It was the man from the coffee shop, the one who had stared at me like he'd seen a ghost. It wasn't a coincidence. He had recognized me. My chest tightened. This was it. The man who had haunted my mother's past. The man whose face I saw in my own reflection. Wasn't just a ghost in a photograph anymore. He was real, alive. Close enough that I could drive to his shop and see him with my own eyes. The only question was, did I actually want to? I spent the next 2 days in a fog. I avoided Mom, barely speaking to her except when necessary. She kept trying to approach me, but I wasn't ready to forgive her. Not when every second I was burning with questions about the man she had hidden from me my entire life. Finally, on the 3rd day, I made up my mind. I took the bus after school, my heart pounding the entire way. The closer I got, the more I wondered what I would say. Would I walk in and introduce myself? Would I accuse him of abandoning me? Would I just stare and wait for him to recognize me? When the bus pulled up near his shop, I almost stayed in my seat. But something inside me, maybe stubbornness, maybe desperation, forced me to get off. I stood there on the sidewalk, staring at the sign, Carter's Auto Repair. My hands were sweaty, my knees weak. And then, before I could second-guess myself, I pushed open the door. The smell of oil and rubber hit me as soon as I stepped inside. The shop was dimly lit, the kind of place where time seemed to stand still, filled with the clatter of tools and the hum of an engine being worked on. A man was bent over the hood of a car, his back to me, wearing a grease-stained shirt. "Be right with you," he called without turning around. His voice was rough, deeper than I expected, but something about it sent a shiver down my spine. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. My feet felt glued to the floor. But when he finally straightened and turned, my chest clenched. It was him. The man from the photo. The man from the coffee shop. For a moment, neither of us moved. His eyes widened, and his wrench slipped from his hand, clattering loudly on the concrete. "You," he breathed, like the word had been torn out of him. I froze. I didn't know what to say, how to even begin. My heart was racing so fast I thought I might collapse. "Are you Daniel Carter?" His jaw tightened. He wiped his hands on a rag, but his gaze never left mine. "Yeah. And who are you?" I almost laughed. It came out bitter and shaky. "You don't know." Confusion flickered across his face. Then something else, recognition, dawning horror. His hand trembled slightly as he pointed at me. No, it can't be." "My name is Alex," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "Alex Morgan. My mom is Sarah." The rag fell from his hands. His face drained of color. Oh my God. I didn't know whether to scream or cry. "So you do know." He stepped back, like he needed distance to process what he was seeing. 17 years, he whispered. 17 years, and she never told me. I felt my chest tighten. "She told me you were dead, that you didn't exist. I only found out the truth a few days ago." He ran a hand through his hair, pacing in a circle. I didn't even know. "I swear to you, Alex, your mother never told me she was pregnant. If I had known." His voice cracked, and he trailed off. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to, but my anger wouldn't let me. "So what? You just left, walked out of her life and never looked back." His eyes burned with guilt. "We were kids. I was stupid. I thought I wasn't ready for anything serious. But I didn't know about you. I didn't know." I clenched my fists. "And now what? You think showing up 17 years too late makes it okay?" He flinched like I'd slapped him. "No, nothing makes it okay. But I need you to believe me, I would have been there. If I had known, I never would have left you behind." The silence between us was unbearable. The weight of everything unsaid pressed down like a storm cloud. My entire body buzzed with conflicting emotions: rage, grief, a desperate curiosity I couldn't suppress. Finally, I said, "I don't know what to believe." He nodded slowly. "I don't blame you, but I want to fix this if you'll let me. I want to get to know you." Something about the way he said it, soft, pleading, almost broken, made my stomach twist. A part of me had always wondered what it would be like to have a father. And here he was, flesh and blood, standing in front of me. But another part of me couldn't forgive how long it had taken. I don't know if I can do that, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. He stepped closer, cautiously, like I was a wild animal that might bolt. I understand. But Alex, please just give me a chance. One chance. I looked at him. Really looked at him. The lines in his face, the calluses on his hands. The same eyes I saw in the mirror every morning. Maybe he was telling the truth. Maybe Mom had kept me from him, just like she kept him from me. But the thought of choosing between them, of having to untangle their lies and half-truths, made my head spin. I'll think about it, I said finally, my voice trembling. Relief washed over his face, though his eyes still held that deep sadness. That's all I ask? I turned to leave, my heart pounding in my ears. As I pushed open the door, I heard his voice behind me, soft and almost desperate. You have no idea how long I've waited for this moment. And as I stepped back into the sunlight, I realized I had no idea what I'd just set in motion. When I left Daniel's shop, my mind was a hurricane. I replayed every word, every expression on his face. The guilt, the shock, the sadness. It didn't feel like an act. If he was lying, he deserved an Oscar. But deep down, something told me he was telling the truth, which meant Mom had lied to both of us. By the time I got home, I was shaking. She was in the kitchen making dinner, humming to herself like nothing had changed. The smell of garlic and onions filled the air, but it only made me nauseous. I dropped my backpack on the floor with a thud. We need to talk, I said. She turned, startled by the tone of my voice. What's wrong, honey? I pulled the photo from my bag and slapped it on the counter. I met him. The color drained from her face. Her hands stilled, the wooden spoon clattering into the pot. What? What do you mean? I went to his shop. Daniel Carter, my father. The words felt heavy on my tongue. He's alive. He's here. And you've been lying to me for 17 years. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. For a long moment, she just stared at me like I was a stranger. Finally, she whispered, You shouldn't have gone there. Shouldn't have gone there? My voice cracked with fury. Are you serious? You lied to me my whole life. You told me he was dead. He didn't even know I existed, Mom. Do you understand what that means? Her hands trembled as she reached for the counter to steady herself. Tears welled in her eyes. But I didn't feel sorry for her. Not this time. I did it to protect you, she said, her voice breaking. He wasn't ready. He would have left you, Alex. I couldn't risk it. I couldn't let you grow up waiting for a man who didn't want you. That wasn't your choice to make. I shouted. You decided for both of us. You robbed me of a father, and you robbed him of a son. The silence that followed was suffocating. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. Finally, she said, You don't know the whole story. I laughed bitterly. Then tell me, for once in your life, tell me the truth. She looked broken, like every wall she had built over the years was crumbling. We were young. He was reckless. I thought he didn't love me. When I found out I was pregnant, I panicked. And when he left town, I told myself it was better that way. That you would be safer if you thought he was gone. Safer. I shook my head. You think lying to me was safer? Do you know what it feels like to grow up thinking you're missing half of who you are? To feel like something's wrong with you, but you can't explain it. Her tears spilled over. I thought I was doing the right thing. I turned away, my chest heaving. You didn't trust me enough to handle the truth. You didn't even trust him enough to tell him I existed. And now everything's ruined. I started for the stairs, but her voice stopped me. Did he say anything about me? She asked quietly, almost fearfully. I froze. Part of me wanted to say no, to hurt her the way she had hurt me. But the truth clawed its way out. He said you never told him, that he would have been there if he knew. Her sob broke the air like glass shattering. She sank into a chair, her shoulders shaking. I couldn't stand to watch her cry. I couldn't stand to be in the same room. So I ran upstairs, slammed the door, and buried my face in my pillow. That night, I stared at the ceiling for hours, unable to sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw both of their faces, Mom's guilt, Daniel's regret. Two stories, two versions of the past. And I was caught in the middle, drowning. By morning, I realized something terrifying. It wasn't just about the past anymore. Now that I had found him, I had a choice to make. Did I let Daniel into my life? Did I give him a chance? Or did I stay loyal to Mom, even though she had betrayed me? No matter what I chose, someone would get hurt. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure who I wanted to protect. The days after my confrontation with Mom blurred together. I went to school, did my homework, hung out with friends, but none of it felt real. Everything in my head came back to two people, Daniel and Mom. I didn't know who to believe. Maybe both of them were telling the truth from their own perspective. Or maybe both were lying to protect themselves. Either way, I was the one left carrying the weight of it. Daniel started messaging me. Just short text at first. Hope you're okay. I'd love to talk when you're ready. I didn't respond, but I couldn't bring myself to delete them either. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped. One Saturday, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my bike and rode out of town until the houses thinned and the fields stretched out. I needed space to think. Stopping at a small park, I sat on a bench and tried to imagine what my life would have been like if Daniel had been around from the start. Would I have been happier? More confident? Would I have felt whole instead of incomplete? The thought made me ache. When I got home, Mom was waiting for me. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. Alex, she said softly, we need to talk. I sighed. I don't want another excuse, Mom. No excuses, she said, just honesty. She pulled out an old shoebox and set it on the table. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all unopened. She pushed them toward me. They're from Daniel, she said, her voice trembling. He wrote after he left. I never read them. I told myself he didn't care. But the truth is, I was scared. Scared that if I let him back in, he'd hurt us both. So I hid them. From you. From myself. My stomach twisted. I picked up one of the envelopes, yellowed with age. The handwriting was messy but desperate. You kept these from me. She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. I've lived with that regret every day. I'm so sorry, Alex. I thought I was protecting you. But really, I was protecting myself. For the first time, I saw her not as the strong, unshakable woman who raised me, but as a scared, flawed human who had made mistakes. Huge ones. But human all the same. I didn't know whether to scream or hug her. Instead, I slipped one of the letters into my pocket and left the house. My feet carried me to Daniel's shop before I even realized where I was going. When I walked in, he looked up in surprise, then relief. Alex, you came. I pulled out the letter and tossed it onto the counter. You wrote these. She kept them. He stared at it for a long time, his eyes glassy. I must have sent 100. I thought she burned them. She kept them in a box. I said flatly. Unopened. He swallowed hard, then looked at me. I don't know if I can ever make up for the years we lost, but I want to try. If you'll let me. I searched his face, looking for a lie. But all I saw was regret and hope tangled together. My chest ached with a mixture of anger and longing. Finally, I said, I don't know if I can forgive you. Or her? Not yet. But maybe I don't want to lose the chance to try. A small, shaky smile spread across his face. That's all I ask? We stood there in silence, two strangers bound by blood, both unsure of how to move forward. For the first time, though, I felt a flicker of possibility. That night, back home, I sat at my desk and opened one of the letters. The first line read, Sarah, if you're reading this, please know I never stopped thinking about you. And if you ever had my child, please tell them I want to be in their life. Please give me the chance. Tears blurred the words. I set the letter down, my heart pounding. Maybe there wasn't a neat ending to this story. Maybe forgiveness wouldn't come quickly. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't alone anymore. For the first time in 17 years, I had choices. And maybe, just maybe, I had a father.